I was at the cinema last night, and my girlfriend whispered to me, I think the guy sitting next to me is masturbating. I said, ignore him, he'll soon stop. She said, I can't, he's using my hand. An aspiring writer once said, I want to write stuff that the whole world will read, stuff that people will react to on a truly emotional level, stuff that will make them scream, cry, and howl in pain and anger. He now writes error messages for the Microsoft Corporation. I saw my friend Jinx yesterday. I said, hey, Jinx. I got no response. I said a little louder, Jinx. Still no response. Eventually, I decided to be a pest. Hey, Jinx. Yo, Jinx. Hi, Jinx. What's going on, Jinx? Hey, Jinx. Hi, Jinx. She got mad at me and screamed, I've had enough of your hi, Jinx.
The two gentlemen were talking, and one said, last week we went out to a new restaurant, and it was really great. I would recommend it. The other man said, what's the name of the restaurant? The first man thought, and finally said, what is the name of that flower you give to someone you love? You know, the one that's red and has thorns? Do you mean a rose? That's the one, replied the man. He then turned towards the kitchen and yelled, Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to last week? Three friends decide to sell their 3 ducks. The first man takes his duck, knocks on a stranger's door, and says, hello, ma'am, would you like to buy my duck? The woman says, sure, I will give you $5 for your duck. The man says, great, and they make the exchange. The second friend goes up to another house, knocks, and asks the owner if he'd like to buy his duck. The homeowner says, sure, how about $10? Great, the duck owner responds, and they make the exchange. The third friend knocks on a door and asks the lady who answers if she'd like to buy his duck. I don't have any money on me right now, but my husband is away, and if you come in, I'll exchange for your duck. The man says, great, walks in, and they have a passionate lovemaking session. It was so great that as the man is walking out the door, the woman says, that was amazing. Can we go another round? He replies that he'd rather get going. You can have your duck back if you f me one more time, she entices. Great, says the man, and walks back in for round 2. 30 minutes later, he's walking back out the door with his duck in his arms when it flies out of his hands, lands in the street, and gets demolished by an 18-wheeler. The truck driver gets out and says, I'm so sorry, man. Can I pay you for killing your duck? Here's $15. The former duck owner says, great, and goes to meet back up with his 2 friends. What'd y'all get for y'all's ducks? The man asks. I got $5 for my duck, says the first. Ha! I got $10 for my duck, gloats the second. The third, with a smile on his face, says, oh yeah, I got a fuck for a duck for a fuck, and $15 for a fucked up duck. One day, a man started hearing voices in his head telling him to leave his job and family and go to Vegas. He ignored it at first, but things were stressful at home, so the next day when he heard it again, he took it as a sign and left everything behind. As he approached Vegas, the voice in his head said, go to Caesar's palace. So the man obliged, thinking he had nothing more to lose. Once he stepped inside the casino, the voice commanded him to go to an ATM and take out everything he owned. At this point, he was already so far into it, he figured this was his chance to risk it all for good. With the money in hand, the voice said, go to the roulette table. The man wasn't about to stop listening now. He approached the table, and the worker asked for everyone's bets. Now the voice said, put it all on black. So the man put it all on black. The ball rolled around for a bit and finally settled on a red space. The voice in his head said, fuck. A mom is driving to the grocery store with her kids. One of her kids says, "Mom, why did you name me Rose?" The mom says, "When you were born and we walked out of the hospital with you, a rose landed on your head, so I named you Rose." Another one of her kids says, "Mom, why did you name me Leaf?" The mom says, "When you were born and we walked out of the hospital with you, a leaf landed on your head, so I named you Leaf." Her third kid says, "Bub da bob da bob bob," and she says, "Shut up, Brick." Williams College and Amherst College have a long-standing rivalry. One night, the Amherst students decide to raid the Williams football field and spree paint an A for Amherst smack dab in the middle of the field. They sneak out under the cover of the dark, and when the Williams students wake up the next morning, they see the massive A on their field. Naturally, they decide to get Amherst back for their hijinks by leaving their own mark on the Amherst field. The next morning, the Amherst students wake up to an average-sized B+ on their field. A $50 lesson. I recently asked my friend's little girl what she wanted to be when she grows up. She said she wanted to be president someday. Both of her parents, liberal Democrats, were standing there, so I asked her, "If you were president, what would be the first thing you would do?" She replied, "I'd give food and houses to all the homeless people." Her parents beamed with pride. "Wow, what a worthy goal," I told her. "But you don't have to wait until you're president to do that. You can come over to my house and mow the lawn, pull weeds, and sweep my yard, and I'll pay you $50. Then I'll take you over to the grocery store where the homeless guy hangs out, and you can give him the $50 to use toward food and a new house." She thought that over for a few seconds. Then she looked me straight in the eye and asked, "Why doesn't the homeless guy come over and do the work and you can just pay him the $50? I said, "Welcome to the Republican Party." Her parents still aren't speaking to me. A Jets fan walks into a bar with his dog. The bartender says, "Hey bud, no pets allowed in here." The man says, "But wait, this is a special dog. You have to turn on the game to see. When the Jets score, my dog does flips." Sure enough, when the bartender turns on the game, the Jets make a few field goals, and the dog starts flipping and jumping after each kick. "Wow," said the bartender, amazed. "That's great. What does he do when they score a touchdown?" "I don't know. I've only had him for 2 years. Guy walks into a bar and asks for a drink. He notices a jar full of money and asks the bartender if he gets a lot of tips. Bartender explains that it's part of an ongoing bet. The man asks what he must do to win the money. The bartender states that the man must climb the oak tree behind the bar and grab a leaf from the very top, pull an abscessed tooth from a pit bull, and bang a 50-year-old virgin. The man refuses. After many drinks, the man finally accepts the bet. He climbs the tree with ease and brings the bartender a leaf. The man then stumbles to the back room where the dog is sleeping. After a lot of commotion, screaming, and yelping, the man returns. He says, "Now where's the lady with the abscessed tooth?" A carrot is hosting a party. The first to arrive is Carrot's friend Apple, but accompanying him is somebody Carrot does not know. They look just like Apple, but green instead. And so Carrot says, "Hello, Apple. Who might your friend be?" The new fellow replies, "Hello, I am also Apple. Nice to meet you." And so after introductions, the pair entered into the house. Next to arrive was Carrot's neighbor, Onion. But walking next to him was someone Carrot does not know. They look identical to Onion, but have a deep purple-red hue. When they get to the door, Carrot greets them and says, "Good evening, Onion. Could you introduce me to your friend here?" The red vegetable replies, "I'll introduce myself. Nice to meet you, Carrot. People refer to me as Onion." And so the two onions entered the house. A third pair arrives, And this time, it's Carrot's good friend, Potato. Next to Potato is another stranger with the same appearance, but this time red in color. As they approach, Carrot says, "It's nice to see you, Potato." And recalling what had just happened twice, says, "Ah, and you must also be called Potato, correct?" The stranger looks at Carrot and replies, "I am." A ruffled general has heard about a unit with the reputation of being filled with the toughest soldiers around and decides to see for himself. After reviewing the troops, he decides to go to the medical tent to meet the soldiers who weren't at the parade. The general gets to the first soldier and barks at him. "Why are you here, soldier?" The soldier leaps to attention, salutes, and says, "Hemorrhoids, sir." "And how are you treating that?" "Wire brush and disinfectant, sir." "And what's your goal in life, soldier?" "To kill the enemy, sir." "Very good, soldier. At ease." Impressed, the general moves on to the next soldier and says, "Soldier, why are you here?" The second soldier leaps to attention, salutes, and says, "Genital warts, sir." "And how are you treating it?" "Wire brush and disinfectant, sir." "And what's your goal in life, soldier?" "To kill the enemy, sir." "Excellent, soldier. At ease." The general moves on to the third soldier. "And why are you here, soldier?" Leaping to attention, the third soldier salutes and says, "Gum disease, sir." "And how are you treating it?" "Wire brush and disinfectant, sir." "And what's your goal in life, soldier?" "To beat those other two to the f***ing wire brush, sir." A man goes out to meet an old friend. This friend is his drinking buddy from back in the day when he would get blackout drunk. They meet at a bar, and the man immediately tells his friend that he can't drink. "I can't get drunk like I used to. My wife would kill me." "Ah, come on. It will be just like old times. Let's have a few beers." After a few hours, the man gets so drunk that he vomits all over himself. "Man, I told you I shouldn't drink. My wife is gonna kill me." "Don't worry about it. You can blame it on me. I'll put a $10 bill in your shirt pocket, and if your wife asks, it's because I puked on you." Later that night, the man stumbles into his house and is confronted by his wife. "Oh, look at this. I knew you would get too drunk with your friend. You puked all over yourself." Man, heavily slurring his words, "No, no, no. Look, see, my friend puked on me. Look, he gave me $10. It's in my pocket." There's $20 in your pocket." "Oh, yeah. He shit my pants, too." A man crosses the border each morning on a donkey, and each day his donkey is loaded with only bags of straw. When he reaches the bridge marking the border, the tax collectors search his bags to calculate what duty he must pay on his exports. Every day they find nothing. And yet, in the evening, after their shift is finished and they are in the tea houses or restaurants in the city, they see the same man spending lots of money and boasting that he is in fact a smuggler and that no one can catch him. Every day, incensed at his bold claims, the tax collectors obsessively search his bags of straw. They sift the straw, cut it into pieces, rip open the fabric of his bags, attempt to burn the straw, check his hat and his beard, and even cut open his shoes in the hope of finding coins between the leather. And yet, each evening, he is seen back in the city, growing ever more prosperous and ever more brazen, even offering to pay for the tax collector's meals and drinks while continuing to tell stories of his wily smuggling. The tax collectors continued their futile interrogations of the straw bags for years, to no avail. This continues until, now a prosperous man, the smuggler moves away to another city and settles down to enjoy his wealth. Years pass, and one day in the market, one of the retired tax collectors meets his old foe and asks, "Mr.
Many years have passed. I am no longer a tax collector, and we're just two old men. Please, you can tell me, what was it you were smuggling all that time?" The smuggler replied, "Donkeys."
A pastor entered his donkey in a race, and it won. The pastor was so pleased with the donkey that he entered it in the race again, and it won again. The local paper read, "Pastor's ass out front." The bishop was so upset with this kind of publicity that he ordered the pastor not to enter the donkey in another race. The next day, the local paper headline read, "Bishop scratches pastor's ass." This was too much for the bishop, so he ordered the pastor to get rid of the donkey. The pastor decided to give it to a nun in a nearby convent. The local paper, hearing of the news, posted the following headline the next day: "Nun has best ass in town." The bishop fainted. He informed the nun that she would have to get rid of the donkey, so she sold it to a farm for $10. The next day, the paper read, "Nun sells ass for $10." This was too much for the bishop, so he ordered the nun to buy back the donkey and lead it to the plains where it could run wild. The next day, the headlines read, "Nun announces her ass is wild and free." The bishop was buried the next day.
A college professor had just finished explaining an important research project to the class. He emphasized that this paper was an absolute requirement for passing the class and that there would be only two acceptable excuses for being late. Those were a medically certifiable illness or a death in the student's immediate family. A prankster student in the back of the classroom waved his hand and spoke up. "But what about extreme sexual exhaustion, Professor?" As you would expect, the class exploded in laughter. When the students had finally settled down, the professor froze the young man with a glaring look. "Well," he responded, "I guess you'll have to learn how to write with your other hand then."
A man saves up for years to take his dream vacation to a small island in the South Pacific. When he finally gets there, the sound of drums fills the air. Thumpa, thumpa, thumpada, thumpada. The man asks the porter carrying his bags, "What's up with the drums? Is it a festival or something?" The porter gets a serious look on his face and says, "If the drums stop, it will be very bad," and refuses to say any more about it. Over the next few days, the man is enjoying his vacation, and the drums are still playing. Thugpa, thumpa, thumpada, thumpada, non-stop, 24 hours a day. Every time the man asks about the drums, he gets the same response, a fearful look, and "If the drums stop, it will be very bad." The man is having trouble sleeping because the drums just won't stop. Finally, the man has had enough and asks the hotel manager about the drums. When the manager starts on the usual response, the man cuts him off. "Yes, I know. If the drums stop, it will be very bad." Well, what would be so bad? What would happen if the drums stopped? The manager gets a pained look, leans close, and whispers, "When the drums stop, then comes the bass solo." A husband calls up the hotel manager from his room. "Please come fast. I'm having an argument with my wife, and she says she will jump from your hotel window." Manager: "Sir, I'm sorry, but this is a personal issue. We can't help you here." Husband: "Not true, you can. The window is not opening. This is a maintenance issue."
After the birth of their 9th child, a redneck couple decided they'd had enough because they couldn't afford a larger bed. The husband went to the veterinarian and asked to be snipped. "Me and my cousin don't want no more kids." The vet told him he could get a vasectomy, but it was expensive. "There is a cheaper option," said the vet. "Go home, find yourself a cherry bomb, Light it up and put it in a Coors Light can. Then hold the can up to your ear and count to 10. I ain't no rocket surgeon, said the redneck, but how's that going to help me? Trust me, said the vet. So the redneck went home, drained a beer, then stuffed a lit cherry bomb in the empty can. He brought it up to his ear and began to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once he got to 5, he stopped for a second, put the can between his legs, and resumed the count on his other hand.
A UC Berkeley administrator walks out of a hearing laughing uproariously. A professor in the hallway hears him and asks what's so funny. I just heard the funniest joke I've ever heard. So the professor asks, well, what was the joke? I can't tell you. We just suspended a student for it.
A pianist was hired to play background music for a movie. When it was completed, he asked when and where he could see the picture. The producer sheepishly confessed that it was actually an adult film and it was due out in a month. A month later, the musician went to a adult theater to see the adult movie. With his collar up and dark glasses on, he took a seat in the back row of the adult cinema next to a couple who also seemed to be in disguise. The movie was even raunchier than he had feared, featuring group bang bang, bondage, and even a dog. After a while watching the adult movie, the embarrassed pianist turned to the couple and said, I'm only here to listen to the music. Yeah, replied the man, we're only here to see our dog.
Halfway through a recent airplane flight from Warsaw to New York, there was nearly a major disaster when the flight crew got sick from eating the fish. After they had passed out, one of the flight attendants asked over the intercom if there were any pilots in the cabin. An elderly gentleman who had flown a bit in the war raised his hand and was rushed into the cockpit of the 747. When he got there, took the seat, and saw all the displays and controls, he realized he was in over his head. He told the flight attendant that he didn't think he could fly this plane. When asked why not, he replied, I am just a simple Pole in a complex plane.